the third rate cut in a row and the Fed's final rate decision of 2024. Fed Chair Jerome Powell spoke this afternoon about the state of the economy and the job market.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years. The labor market has cooled from its formerly overheated
Yeah,
state
thanks to the
and
Biden
remains
administration that nobody trusted.
Thank goodness we have CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger here with me in Studio 57. Jill, I apparently don't speak Jerome Powell. There was a lot of industry jargon, could you say, in some of what he said? Break down the top lines of what he's saying to us.
Luckily for you, I do have a Fed decoder ring. I brushed it off from the Bernanke and Greenspan eras. Okay, so what's really happening here is the Federal Reserve is trying to tell us, hey, the economy is growing more strongly than we thought, even just a few months ago. And as a result, we don't think we are going to have to lower interest rates by as much or as quickly as we thought just a couple of months ago. So we're going to give you the 0.25 percentage point today. That's fine. But when we look out into the future, their own crystal ball, they see 2 rate cuts next year, 2 rate cuts in the subsequent year, and that's about half of what they thought they were going to have to do. So when the Fed says we're data dependent and they make that kind of remark, what they're really saying is we've got to wait to see what happens in the economy. These are just projections. We could see them change just like they changed from September. So it's important to say this is what they think, and we're not sure if it's definitely going to happen.
I mean, I suppose good news overall for the strength of the economy, but maybe a lot of borrowers are hearing this news and saying that doesn't bode well for me if I have some big ticket items the next couple of years I want to buy.
I think they're right, and I think it doesn't bode well based on where we are today. Because if we really were to consider, hey, what would happen if rates just went down by, say, a 0.5 percentage point next year, it wouldn't really help you if you had a big fat credit card balance, right? You'd say, like, oh, great, I'm now paying 23% down from 25, it could go to 21, but that's still so much higher than where we were back before the pandemic. And I think that's the tough thing to swallow. Same thing with a car buyer. Someone goes out and buys a car right now. Rates are higher, prices are higher. And of course, although the Fed does not actually control mortgage interest rates, it's the same story there, but even on steroids. We have mortgage rates that are at around 6.5% right now. With this kind of action in the bond market today, what the Fed is telling us, hey, you're going to go buy a house next year, you're not going to ever see a 5% mortgage. That's not happening.
Yeah.
It's going to be more like a 6% mortgage, maybe, if you're lucky.
All right,
Sorry,
well,
burst your bubble.
Chair Powell specifically brought up the job market. What does that have to do with what they consider and the overall state of the economy?
Okay, so the Fed has what's called a dual mandate. Whip that out at your holiday party. And what that means is they've got 2 specific jobs. One is we want to make sure the economy grows by enough to create a labor market where anyone who wants a job can get a job. So that's one part of the job. But the other part of the job is we don't want the economy to grow by so much that it would actually contribute to inflation. So when the Fed chair is saying, hey, we think the labor market is solid, he's saying we were wildly overheated. When we had those labor shortages and it was the peak of the pandemic frenzy of I can't find anyone to work here, he's saying we're back off from that. It's solid. We're going to see the unemployment rate drift up to maybe 4.3% from the 4.2, 4.1, but that's not a tragedy. It is kind of a more normal market for the labor market.
So what are the benefits of this quarter rate cut?
Well, I mean, you're going to see a teeny tiny reduction in the way that you are approaching borrowing. So let's say you're a small business owner, you want to get a new loan. You might have a slightly lower rate. Let's say that you're going to go get a car. Maybe it's a slightly lower rate. Let's say that you have a credit card balance. It might be a slightly lower rate. But overall, we know that rates are still a lot higher than they were. I think something that's really important here in the, read through the depths of the report that I just want to point out to people. Inside of this report, the Fed said, we think longer term, longer run interest rates, that they're about 3%. Now, why is this important? You don't care what the number is. What we care about is the Fed has told us that's higher than what we thought a year ago. And what that means, our big takeaway should be, interest rates are not going back to 0. They're not going back to 1. They're not going back to 2. The Fed believes that interest rates at around 3%, and remember, right now, we're not at 3, we're in the 4s, that 3% is probably more of the sweet spot. That means if you're a saver, you're happy. You're going to continue to get decent rates. If you are a borrower, you should not expect to see the bargain basement interest rates, that low-cost financing that we saw when there was a complete meltdown in the economy during the pandemic, or even before that, in the financial crisis.
All right, good information as always. Jill Schlesinger, thank you so much.